but you've already U-turned on the system. You've acknowledged that what you introduced in the first place is wrong. You've given in to the rebels. But meanwhile, the OBR assessment of the current proposals, 150,000 people pushed into poverty. I mean, you're talking about parental leave, supporting families, offering help for families. Surely the biggest issue for families is that they're not in poverty.
I am absolutely certain we can spend that on a way that quite rightly protects the most vulnerable people. If we're spending £30 billion a year and we're not protecting a vulnerable person, I think that's a case for looking at that system, quite frankly, into how it works going forward. I say again, on that projection, no one's circumstances who are receiving PIP right now will be pushed into poverty. They'll get exactly what they get at the minute. And you've got to look at those changes in the round. And if anyone is telling me the money we're spending at the minute is delivering the right outcomes for people or for the taxpayer who'll have an interest in how that money is spent properly, I see no one making that case. And you've got to confront those difficult issues. But spending that amount of money, we should absolutely be able to protect the most vulnerable people and give people the support they need for what they need, not just to keep them on PIP or any other benefit for years, for life. I want to stress there's no change for existing claimants, but there is a set of proposals here that include more support for people to get them back into work going forward, changes to making sure, for instance, that people with severe conditions aren't reassessed, that stresses them out and wastes money, a right to try, additional support for the basic element of universal credit going up because that's been frozen while the health element's gone up and the set of perverse incentives that come from that. So look, we're going to be spending more money. We're trying to spend it in a better way.
Susanna talks about a human emergency, and Jonathan talks about the inevitability of money. The argument brings up a bigger question. Is welfare mostly about saving lives or balancing budgets? Can any government say it has been successful while the two agendas are pulling in opposite directions? Make sure you like and subscribe.
Well, first of all, there is no change under our proposals to existing claimants. So no one is going to be pushed into anything because there'll be no change in their circumstances. I accept the impact assessment you're talking about talks about a hypothetical projected rise in future cases, but it's not people being pushed into anything here and now.
Point out PIP is not related to work, and a number of people who are on PIP do in fact work, and say that if they don't get PIP, they won't be able to work.
But it's only 16%. I mean, it's only 16%. That's not a lot. And actually, if you look at the people who receive PIP when they claim it, it goes down when they go on to PIP. So there are things that need addressing.
You think that people who claim PIP...
People will wonder, why did Labour end up making morally and economically wrong proposals back in March?
Ministers protect present voters but make regulations that will hurt the next round of disabled people. This creates a generational split in social protection and suggests that the cost of reform is being put off, not erased.
Jonathan Reynolds, the one thing that our debate guests this morning, including Rachel Maskell, who's going to vote against, and somebody from a more right-wing think tank agreed on, was that one of the reasons that so much PIP is issued is because the assessments are done over the phone since the pandemic, not face-to-face. But that's not, as I understand, a change that you are currently proposing, or am I wrong?
No, I think you're wrong on that. I accept absolutely the big change in more people going on to PIP appears to correlate with the end of face-to-face assessments and them being done over the telephone. I think it's only about 1 in 10 assessments are now face-to-face. And so going back to that proper personal assessment that considers a person, an individual in a holistic way, what do they need, what are their circumstances, that has to be what we return to. And I do believe that is part of what we're putting forward today.
Okay.
The architect even admits that giving life-changing benefits based on call centre clairvoyance opens the door to mistakes, abuse and distrust. However, the cure, thousands more assessors and clinics, would cost money that the Treasury is seeking to save at the same time. Make sure you like and subscribe.
So, people might ask, how come there's money for parental leave, but not for welfare for those with disabilities?
Well, the first thing I'd say is, we're launching a really important review of parental leave today. So the UK has quite a confusing system of parental leave. 8 different parental leave entitlements are available, very confusing for business. Not particularly generous, but also a lot of people aren't even taking what they could currently take. So 1 in 3 new dads takes no paternity leave at all. Shared parental leave is relatively new, hardly anyone is taking that. So I want to give families the best start in life. I think there are real benefits for society from having that, and I want to do that properly. I want to look at how work's changed through self-employment or how family has changed through things like kids kinship care. So that's a really important piece of work. On your question on welfare, I mean, look, let's be clear. Spending on PIP, which is what we're talking about today, has doubled in the last 5 years. It's £22 billion a year. It's going to go up a lot, come what may, right?
A headline that sounds nice for families hides a harsher budgetary truth. The same fiscal envelope that pays for cuddly measures is also the reason the hard savings are needed elsewhere. This shows how governments balance sweetness and austerity in a single news cycle.
Point out PIP is not related to work, and a number of people who are on PIP do in fact work, and say that if they don't get PIP, they won't be able to work.
But it's only 16%. I mean, it's only 16%. That's not a lot. And actually, if you look at the people who receive PIP when they claim it, it goes down when they go on to PIP. So there are things that need addressing.
You think that people who claim PIP...
I say again, this is not about cutting the amount of money we spend at the minute. We're going to be spending a lot more money, come what may, on PIP. The figures are very, very large. But I would say the big change from 2021 to now is, since the pandemic, we've seen this incredible increase in people who are not going back into the labour market. We have an international outlier. No other country has had the increase in disability benefit spending we've had. No other country has got a situation where there are fewer people in the workplace, haven't gone back to the pre-pandemic employment level. So that there are real things to fix.
Okay.
But somebody who currently can't wash below the waist and use the toilet is going to be okay. But next year, if you can't wash below the waist and use the toilet, then it's going to be morally okay to not give them PIP.
The exchange makes Britain's welfare problem clear. Spreadsheets show that spending is going up, while lived experience shows that security is going down. This shows that the size of the cheque doesn't tell anything about how wisely or fairly it was written.
Well, first of all, I'm very proud to have led the campaign to have kept the increase to universal credit after the pandemic. I think the proposal back then, as you say, to cut that was completely wrong. I have always wanted to see the basic element of universal credit for people who are unemployed go up, which is exactly what is being proposed by this government, with the biggest increase to the basic amount of unemployment benefit since the early 1980s. I'm not aware, by the way, of anyone saying the present system is great. Everyone, I think, even if they're not supporting the proposals today, starts off by saying we do need to reform it. We do need to look at this. And actually, I think there's a set of things we're putting forward, including more support if people want it to get back into the workplace, including protecting the most vulnerable people from reassessment, and fundamentally working with disabled people and disabled groups on co-production of how the PIP system should work going forward, the descriptors, the point system that you go through in order to get it. But again, I'm not aware of anyone also saying, why is the UK such an outlier in what we've seen since the pandemic in things like disability benefits?
The party that used to criticise being stingy now calls cutting benefits tough love, showing how quickly morals can change when the balance sheet goes from being a promise of opposition to a burden of government.
We have an international outlier. No other country has had the increase in disability benefit spending we've had. No other country has got a situation where there are fewer people in the workplace, haven't gone back to the pre-pandemic employment level. So that there are real things to fix.
But your argument with the U-turn from last week is that now existing PIP claimants are not going to lose. It's only going to be future PIP claimants, which is, as you said, could lead to a hypothetical increase in poverty. But your argument is because existing claimants aren't losing, it's okay.
Well, I think we've listened to the concerns that colleagues had. People want to see the most vulnerable people protected. I want to see that. I've got a direct family interest in this system, and I want to see those people protected.
Westminster's never-ending magic trick: declare gifts first, then let the Treasury pluck the budgetary rabbit from an ever-shrinking hat. The public has to wait to find out which service or tax band pays for the kudos.
And so going back to that proper personal assessment that considers a person, an individual, in a holistic way, what do they need, what are their circumstances, that has to be what we return to. And I do believe that is part of what we're putting forward today.
OK.
But somebody who currently can't wash below the waist and use the toilet is going to be OK. But next year, if you can't wash below the waist and use the toilet, then it's going to be morally OK to not give them PIP.
We've got to confront those difficult issues, but spending that amount of money, we should absolutely be able to protect the most vulnerable people and give people the support they need for what they need, not just to keep them on PIP or any other benefit for years.
Reform based on future consultations might lead to a familiar pattern. Headlines today, homework tomorrow, and vulnerable individuals caught in limbo while Whitehall works on its plan.
public support for any system. That's absolutely integral to keeping the welfare state there to support people. But also, frankly, what we're talking about today is a better system. It's got a lot of improvements in there. But I would say the big change from 2021 to now is, since the pandemic, we've seen this incredible increase in people who are not going back into the labour market. We are an international outlier.
A policy that starts by tightening the gate goes against high-minded talk about giving young people a chance. If opportunity doesn't come faster than eligibility shrinks, the next generation may feel more penalised than empowered. Let us know what you think down below in the comments.